What's up YouTube, Mr. Lamasi here, and today we're going to talk about potential changes to the Barbarian that I think would help bring him more endgame builds, more early and mid-game builds as well, just kind of more use for some of his skills and play as he goes through the game. So, let's dive on over into it and give a discussion. Again, this is just going to be my thoughts, my opinions. I am just throwing some stuff out there. None of this is stuff that I'm telling the devs to do. I am not a developer either. This is just me hoping. And even then, I'm not even sure all these changes would be good. You know, players aren't always the best designers. I just think there's some ideas of this that could help improve some of the game and stuff that I would like to see. So let's start at the top over in the Warcry section right here. I think Warcry itself just needs a little bit less mana cost. I actually made a Singbar build and I put it up on YouTube and it was pretty fun. I actually think it was pretty decent. You could maybe increase the damage ever so slightly, but I don't think the damage was like too bad where it was at. I think the idea still comes down to the mana is such a high requirement for it. You're still jamming a ton of points into energy. You're still chugging your mana potions, or you still have to have insight and silk weaves and whatever, frost burns and all of this stuff just to help deal with the mana cost of Warcry, because even though they nerfed it or buffed it, I guess, to 0.75 mana per level instead of 1 mana additional per level, I still think it just could go down a little bit more. I think anywhere between 0.5 and 0.6 is probably a good spot for it. But this is still the fastest way to really level up a Barbarian solo. So, you know, something, I mean, it's decent. It's still decent, and I have fun with the Shout Barb when I do play through with him. But I think a slightly more of a mana adjustment would be helpful. The second thing is Grimward. It's still kind of buggy. It still feels like it doesn't do as much as it's supposed to do. I know it'll help boost enemy damage taken and stuff, but it just, I don't know. It's still kind of feeling a little strange in the interaction. I haven't tested it enough. That's just something I noticed. Maybe, yeah, and something like that. Maybe taunting instead of fearing would be better. Because when it fears everything and you're trying to hit it and everything keeps running away, it gets very difficult to go and just fight with it. But if it taunted and brought stuff towards it, then you can run over to it and you have your mobs and you can hit them all and it's taunting them and you're kind of picking them off as they're fighting that and you and whatever. I think there's more there that could be interesting in that interaction. So I think Grimward still has some work to be done on it right there. Now, moving over into the combat mastery. Honestly, I think a lot of these are pretty great. There's still the idea of doing like just merging the weapon masteries into like one-handed and two-handed / throwing or something like that, just so it gives you more ability to swap between weapons. Because when you are playing through the game and you're playing 2 swords and you've put a bunch in sword mastery and then you find a really cool mace, now it's like, well, now what do I do? Do I have to respec, or do I just you know, I think there's some question of that, but I don't hate it at the same time, because I also think, you know, when you're playing through the game, you just kind of invest in all the masteries, just kind of put a point in each. Then you're investing in the skills. And as you're like going through, eventually you get to end game and you kind of decide which mastery you're going to invest in and what weapons you're going to have. And I think it works out okay. So I think there is the idea of combining these. That might be too much of a mod, though, to have that as such. So I'm not saying that needs to happen. I'm just saying I think it's an idea right there. And now we can jump into the combat tree, where I feel a lot of issues do lie. First off, whirlwind, and I'm going to go over here and drop, the game. Hold up, give me the game. There we go. First off, a 50% damage penalty is just a nightmare. I did guided playthroughs of probably 20 characters at least. And my least favorite one of all of them was the Whirlwind Barbarian, because he just was awful. His damage was so bad. His chance to hit was rough. It just was such a long, terrible playthrough, and it just wasn't fun. Now, when you get to the very end game and everything is stacked and you have all of your good gear and all of that stuff, then Whirlwind is fun and it works well. But until that point, it really is just such a sad thing. I would totally be fine to get it to the point where it scales up to be similar damage where it is at the end, but make it start at like plus 50% damage and then slowly increment its way up there or something like that. It really could use such a boost to help it out and make it a fun skill. When you get to level 30, you're just so excited for it, and then it's just complete garbage. And yeah, I think it's still even slightly underpowered in late game stuff as well. So it just is such an iconic skill, and it just is so terrible. Additionally, and we're going to jump over to this screen for this, there is a ton of bugs, and this I'll link this down below. There's a ton of bugs in D2R with Whirlwind that makes it even worse and unplayable. So it's now you can get stuck name locking on people with it and stuff. You could use the hotkey Alt before to help it, but now you can't. Doesn't work. And then the suggestions. Whirlwind should be untargetable. Alt hotkey should be fixed, and I agree with this overall. Being able to hold Alt and avoid targeting monsters with this would be really nice. Additionally, there's some hit registry issues. The animation is messed up, yada, yada, yada. This has a lot of true information in it, and this person did a lot of good research on it, and it is something that really should be fixed because, again, Whirlwind is just such a classic skill in the game, and to see it just get kind of messed around with like that is very sad. So I think doing that stuff would help it. Additionally, I think leap attack, having maybe the knockback from leap on your leap attack could maybe be something that is added. Again, leap is a synergy here, and you get added damage by having leap, but there needs to be something for leap attack when you go around and land, because right now you just you leap in, but then you just swing and hit a single mob, right? And so it's like if there's 3 or 4 mobs or whatever stuff right there, it just doesn't like feel any good. It just has nothing. There's no reason to make a leap attack character right now. So I think there's a lot of ideas there. There can be, a knockback, and it doesn't have to be the long, super crazy knockback distance that leap has, but give it some sort of knockback on land. It should have some sort of AoE hit on its land, maybe a little small, not Nova, but, like pulse around it with a little bit of damage. It could have, just a little, whatever, right? A Warcry on land and it synergizes with Warcry and gets that damage and a little stun from the landing right there. Maybe that could be interesting. So you can like leap into a group of mobs and it does a little, Warcry around and stuns the monsters around. So then you can fight everything. Just something. Because right now, without any of that, there's no reason to leap attack and jump on anything and get yourself in a worse position, and it has no added effect or nothing helpful. So I think something like that could be a boost and could be useful. Now, continuing forward, double throw, I think has a lot of interest right now because a lot of people are really looking at throw barbs. They tried to kind of do some stuff to throw barbs, And I think it could be really fun. I think it could be super interesting to have that, right? Where it's like, yeah, we can have this new build, throw barbs that are super great. But currently, they just still kind of suck. And I think a lot of this comes down to simply the idea of quantity. Quantity is still just messy in this game. They improve the quantity by 50%, but the problem is, even with that, yeah, so bad I forgot what was in the tree. Even with that boost, you still throw out of it crazy fast. And the reason is because the Barbarian can throw out of all of the quantity of his weapons in like 30 seconds if he just sits there and throws all the time. And you have to remember that he has to throw to hit to do damage, whereas something like a Javazon, who has higher quantity from the Javs anyways, can throw a javelin and then it hits and it, pierces and it splits and it has the lightning fury and all of this stuff, or poison you throw and then it leaves the trail and all the mobs get in it. So the damage is coming from all the elemental pieces of it. Whereas the throw barb, it's all about the physical. You throw it and it hits, and to do more damage, you have to throw another one and hit again. So he just throws, and he'll run out in 30 seconds to a minute very easily. And then he has to go to town and repair. And you do the same thing over and over again. And you say, well, you have replenished quantity on things like, Lacerate or in War Strikes and all of this stuff. And I say, great, but replenished quantity is, I believe, one quantity every 5 seconds. So now instead of 30 seconds, it's like 38 seconds to throw all of your weapon out, right? It doesn't change it at all. The replenished quantity does very little to actually replenish, and you outthrow it so fast. I mean, you outthrow replenished quantity on Titans on a Javazon who's running around and just throwing one every now and then, let alone a character who's constantly throwing the quantity right there. So 50% extra quantity or replenishes quantity, any of these things really aren't improving this a lot and making it still viable. What actually needs to happen, in my opinion, is one of kind of three things, I would say. One, throw mastery and or double throw itself has a natural replenish quantity on it, where as you improve those skills or as you improve the mastery, the replenished quantity will replenish the quantity of the throwing weapons even faster, right? So if you really go into it, you're going to be able to keep up with the speed that you'll be throwing at. Two, there could be something for a percent to not use quantity, a chance to not use one of them on throwing mastery or something like that. Could also have the same idea where you're throwing and now you have a little bit of that weight of, okay, I have a 68% chance to not use a quantity whenever I throw one or whatever it is. And this could just be helpful. And that in combination with the replenished quantity that you have on those could be very helpful right there as well. So I think that's option number 2. And option number 3, and this benefits just the throw barb, which I think is nice because I think boosting to help Javazons and all of that might not be the greatest because they're already super strong. Just make double throw the skill itself not take quantity, right? That way, anybody else throwing stuff, throwing the javelins, all of that still has quantity. And I know many of you guys are like, oh no, let's just get rid of quantity completely. But I'm honestly okay with quantity existing in some capacities in this game. And that's just my opinion. Some people hate me for it. And, I think that's a strong word to say for an opinion about quantity. But regardless, just having double throw itself be like magic arrow. Does not use a quantity when using this skill. And now the double throw barb using that has that distinct advantage of when he's using the double throw. Now you aren't consuming quantity. And it also opens a lot more ethereal throw weapons that can now become viable for the throw barb exclusively, because he gets to throw them, whereas everybody else could throw out of them unless they have their replenished quantity on there and all of that stuff, right? So I think that's kind of a interesting, viable way to boost the throw barb right there. and really just kind of hit the crux of the problem, which is quantity. Quantity is just rough. And, you know, like I say, I mean, you probably have some other ideas and other thoughts on it as well, and that's totally fine. These are just kind of my thoughts of ways that I would improve or think that I would like to test out and try to improve it right there. Now, let's also get into the meat and potatoes of it, which is one of the biggest issues in the game affecting the Barbarian overall. And I also would love to see Concentrate always hit. I think that would be really nice to have that for that like single target skill. I know the non-interruptible is nice, but if that always hit, I think it really kind of fits with the lore of the skill, Concentrate, and would help the Barbarian in a lot of cases. But getting back to why I thought of that just in this moment, it is because this right here. This is the chance to hit calculation in Diablo 2. It is 200% times attack rating divided by attack rating plus defense rating times attacker's level divided by the attacker's level plus the defender's level. So the attack rating, of course, is on whoever is the attacker side. So if I'm fighting a mob, that's my attack rating versus their defense. And then my level versus their level. And I really believe it's the second part of this formula that is the issue. The first part of this formula is attack rating and defense rating. And so, okay, if you come across a monster that's got a higher defense and your attack rating's really low, it's a little bit harder to hit and all of this. But the second part, attacker level over the attacker level plus defender level, means that even if my attack rating is really high, that's only half the formula. If I'm level 28 or 32 and I go fight normal Bale, who is level 60, I am always going to have a tough time physically hitting him because he just has a high level. That's it. He just has a stupid high level. And this is true for all of the physical characters in the game. Any character that has to have a hit check, which is not the casters, which is why a lot of casters end up being better, especially when you're playing through the game, because they're just going to be high levels and have that high, defense rating and whatever stuff. And so your chance to hit just is so difficult. And if you're not always keeping your level up and taking time to farm and increase your level and stick to the level of the mobs in the area and all of that stuff, you're going to fall behind, and all of a sudden your chance to hit is just going to be garbage. And I just feel like this formula could just be improved if they adjusted or removed the second half of it. I don't mind there being attack rating versus defense rating, but the level piece, I think, really just added in, and especially with some of the levels of the bosses and the monsters and all of this stuff, I think it just really nerfs physical damage down too much. And this is the main reason that we see casters just being so much better. And this, of course, doesn't even talk about the monsters having their block chance, which, again, is something that you have to overcome as a character that's going to, try and do all that damage, right? So that's the tough part, There just needs to be something. You could also do, attacker level equals character level plus some number, just whatever it is. Maybe have it be more weighted. It's just being this 50-50 piece of it is just so brutal. And even if you have that ignore target defense and all that stuff, it's still just going to be brutal because that attacker level, defender level. Again, all of this calculation has to be done for a character trying to hit, but then a sorceress, a hammered in, any of these characters that always hit because they're casters just blow past all of them, right? So, this just kind of is an issue, I think, for a lot of stuff. And I think changing this formula would be a massive shift to the game and could really bring a lot of beauty out of a lot of the classes that have to go through a hit check. So With that being said, that's my thoughts on the Barbarian and a little bit of my thought overall as well on the chance to hit calculation. Thank you guys for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, everybody. I'll catch you guys later. Peace, YouTube.